Sherlock Holmes is one of the most famous literary characters of all time, and Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes series has been adapted into just about every creative form there is, from movies to comic books. Even some otherwise unrelated TV series have featured a themed episode based on the detective's exploits, and there are several TV shows inspired by Sherlock Holmes. The character's stories are so well known that even people who know the bare minimum about the iconic detective might also know about his nemesis, Moriarty. That said, Moriarty is not the only villain to appear in the Sherlock Holmes mysteries. The antagonists in animated shows and movies like Basil, the Great Mouse Detective, can get away with being over-exaggerated, but actors playing live-action Sherlock Holmes villains have to walk a fine line between being larger-than-life and staying extremely sinister. Virtually every actor who has appeared as a villain in a Sherlock Holmes adaptation has put their own spin on the character, which has kept the formula from feeling stale and predictable and led to some standout performances. Culverton Smith Sherlock. BBC's Sherlock is one of the best adaptations, with Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman's chemistry defining the series, along with its modern take on the original mysteries. Unfortunately, of all the 4 seasons of Sherlock, the final season is the worst by far, with many reviewers claiming that it was both unnecessary and let the show down. Still, Sherlock's 4th season had some high points, one of which being the terrifying Culverton Smith, who appeared in the episode, The Lying Detective. Smith is a seemingly respectable public figure with a secret that is both timely and unnerving. Smith, played by Toby Jones, hides behind his status to act as he pleases, including committing murder. His influence extends to powerful businesses, and he seems especially sinister when rewatching the show as he resembles other figures with extensive power and an attitude that suggests they are untouchable. Jones' portrayal differs from the book's version of the character, who lives on an island, but his take on the villain feels extremely realistic, making him even more disturbing. Dowager Lady Basilweather Enola Holmes. Enola Holmes follows Sherlock's younger sister, played by Millie Bobby Brown. The story is based on the book series by Nancy Springer, and features Sherlock in more of a guiding role, with Enola taking on the main mystery, which concerns the whereabouts of her missing mother. The movie eventually reveals a shocking villain in the form of the seemingly respectable Dowager Lady Basilweather. Many of the Sherlock Holmes mysteries feature clues that seem obvious in hindsight, and Enola Holmes leaves several clues that reveal the grandmother killer twist. The Dowager is outwardly concerned about her grandson, who was about to take a seat in the House of Lords, where he was set to vote in favor of a bill that would expand voting rights. However, he was the target of several failed assassination attempts before he could arrive. Enola discovered that the Dowager was the mastermind behind the attacks, prizing her bigoted views over the life of her grandson by attempting to stop him from voting for the bill. She is a classic villain hiding in plain sight, and played perfectly by Frances de la Tour. Jamie Moriarty Elementary. Professor James Moriarty is one of the best villains in the Sherlock Holmes mysteries, as he is a rare character who matches Sherlock's intelligence, allowing him to come close to outwitting the famous detective. The character has been played by many actors, but one of the best versions of Moriarty made some drastic changes to the infamous antagonist. In Elementary, James became Jamie, and the show introduced a romantic tension between Moriarty and Sherlock. This was a creative gamble that could have been a disaster, but it worked well, partly due to Natalie Dormer's scene-stealing performance as both Moriarty and Irene Adler. Dormer's Moriarty is still charismatic and hyper-intelligent, but she is also unpredictable as viewers did not know what to expect. This wildly different antagonist was a perfect choice for Elementary, keeping the show's creative edge as well as emphasizing Sherlock's emotional turmoil, which is often absent from other adaptations. Silas Holmes Young Sherlock. Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes origin story has been a surprisingly well-received hit, with an 84% positive Rotten Tomatoes rating from critics. Many of the characters in Young Sherlock are based on those found in the books, which means that there is a Moriarty. However, the standout villain in the series is Sherlock's father, Silas Holmes, Joseph Fiennes. Fiennes has experience playing characters who are outwardly caring, with a monstrous side, having played Fred Waterford in The Handmaid's Tale, and Silas is nearly as sinister. Silas is a greedy criminal mastermind who betrays virtually every member of his family in the pursuit of wealth. He faked the death of his daughter, sent his wife to an asylum, and trafficked nerve gas that he planned to sell to the highest bidder. While Silas' ambitions are less complicated than many other great Sherlock Holmes villains, Silas stands out for his dual nature and ability to present a friendly face while inwardly scheming. Professor James Moriarty Sherlock Holmes. As one of the greatest actors of this age, Jared Harris is mesmerizing to watch in any role, and his take on Moriarty is often considered one of the best in the Sherlock Holmes franchise. The first of the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock movies set up Moriarty's reveal, with Harris then being central to the sequel, Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows. Harris's Moriarty is Holmes' intellectual equal, with a mind that runs on cold logic and has no time for morality. Moriarty is not always as compelling a character as other villains in Sherlock Holmes, with his main distinction being his rivalry with the detective. However, Harris's version is chilling, conveying a near-constant sense of menace that is occasionally broken by rage. The scene in which he sings as the injured Holmes is struggling behind him perfectly represents the villain within one short moment. Robert Downey Jr.'s Sherlock is more action-oriented than many adaptations, and while this direction was not popular with all fans, Harris's performance was highly praised. Charles Magnuson Sherlock. BBC's Sherlock featured some iconic villains, and while Moriarty was one of the best, the series' focus on Sherlock's longtime nemesis would be a detriment to some of its